Welcome to the Sunflower Rising podcast, where we explore what happens when our raw, messy humanness collides with the boundless grace of Jesus Christ. For too long, the 12 steps have been seen as something reserved only for drugs or alcohol. But here, we're breaking that stigma wide open. These steps are a pathway to surrender, healing, and freedom for everything life throws at us with Jesus right at the center. It's about progress, not perfection. I'm Nikki.
And I'm Rae Anne.
And we're thrilled that you're here. Pull up a chair, let's rise together, and remember to always face the sunlight.
Welcome to Sunflower Rising, the place where we talk about real life redemption, messy recovery, and beautiful freedom we find when we say yes to Jesus. Today is an extra special for me. I'm sitting across from my oldest daughter, Bree. Bree, thank you for being here and for trusting me with your story. We're going to talk about what it's really like growing up with parents who were deep in addiction and then by God's grace became what some people jokingly call Jesus freaks. We're not here to sugarcoat anything. We're here to tell the truth because someone listening right now needs to hear that change is possible and that kids can survive, even thrive through it all. Bree, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Again, thank you so much for being here. So let's start at the very beginning. What might be some of your earliest memories of childhood, back when mom and dad were still using, or what maybe did a typical day look like for you as a little child?
I was thinking, when you sent me that question, I was thinking about it. I was like, what did my childhood look like? And thankfully, it's been so long that it is something like I really have to contemplate and think about, like, what was my life? What did my parents used to be like?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I've lived more life with you guys
We're
this
done.
way. I've lived life longer with you and dad this way.
Yeah.
So, like, remembering my childhood, it's like, you have to actually think about it. I mean, of course, moments will come, I'm like, yeah, it used to be like this. But just truly with my childhood, it was just anger and, like, just unsafe. Like, just feeling so anxious about how something's going to happen and just being angry. Listening back to your and Autumn's podcast, and it was like hearing you guys talk, I was like, the biggest emotion I probably felt was anger as a child. Of just like angry at you, angry at dad, but angry in different ways for different parents. Like, I think I was more mad at you as my mom for being the way you were than I was with my dad.
Interesting. And I don't know that you've ever said that to me.
Well, I was thinking about it. I was like, I think with you, I was more just anger because you're my mom. Like, we talked, we laughed, you protected me, you kept me safe. But then it was like, you lied. And it was like, that made me so angry. And I also think I viewed you weaker than I viewed dad, maybe, because women, you're emotional. And it was like, dad wasn't emotional. He didn't lie. He was just way sneakier than you were. So it's like, maybe that's
Which is so funny, because from the perspective of that, well, your dad always had that catch line, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, and never found your dad to be sneaky about anything. He was blatant. And I was more of the one that would try to be one way and pretend like I was another.
Maybe
or
that's
put on
what
a
it
front,
was,
or put on a face. Like, soccer mom by day, but horrible tweaker person, just yuck by night.
And I think that's maybe what it was, is like, at that age I could realize, like, my mom was lying to me more than my dad was.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thinking about it, that's was like, okay, how do I think about it? I think with dad, like, I just didn't, I was like more, the word grossed out I don't like, but like with dad I was just like, I don't like this, I don't like you. But with you I feel like it hurt more because it's like, you're my mom and you're the one that we moved and then would come back, and it was like, why are you this, like, why are you weak like this, like, why is this still happening, why are we around this man? And it was like, I would rather have just like, let's go, me and you and sis, like, let's get out of here. And then it was like, dad it didn't hurt as much. Obviously now as an adult, like, grown and have great parents, my dad hurts way more now to think about. But like, growing up, it didn't feel that way.
Right. No, I get it. And I love that you mentioned something in your thing where you had said, like, let's just pack up and go. Like, you need sis, let's just get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that. I think you were probably roughly about 10 years old. Dad and I will be sober this July 16 years. And you were 12 years old you were 12 years old when we got sober. And I remember around the time that you're 10, I think it was, and we lived in the trailer in Mustang, and your dad had come over and just hanging out and trying to, it's like we didn't know how to have a life together, but we didn't know how not to have a life
without each
apart.
other. Yeah.
I mean, we'd been together since I was 15, your dad was 16, so we'd grown up together.
And you still had a parent.
Right.
So it's like,
but
there was no cutting.
Right. even just not co-parenting, we were very codependent and didn't know how to be together, but didn't know how to be separate.
Yeah.
So that played a huge factor. But I remember a day when your dad came over and we ended up fighting, and it just went the way that it always does. And you flat out just told me, would you just get a divorce already? Would you just leave him alone?
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that day, wish it would have instantly changed things, but it stopped me in my tracks and made me think, man, usually it doesn't matter what the state of affair is, what's going on, what's happening in adult's life or the parent's life. The children always want their parents to stay together.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that my child was advocating and pretty much begging me, will you please just divorce my dad already? Will you just stop and get it over with?
Yeah.
Was very eye-opening for me. It was impactful.
Yes, but yeah, especially because like our childhood was, I mean, there was great moments. Like we had good childhoods in the sense of like you look back on it and don't think about the bad. Like yes, we had parents that loved us. Like that was something that I would always say with you and Dad, even though like you guys were broken, had your addictions, and like didn't know how to love each other or love yourselves, but like you did love your children. Like you cared about me and Autumn. We had what we think like a nice house, a happy life, and it's like yeah, behind closed doors things are scary. This is not the picture, but I don't think I never doubted that you and Dad loved us.
Yeah.
I don't think that was ever something that like I thought about was like my parents don't love me, like I'm not good enough, they can't. I never internalized that like I'm the problem.
Right.
I did something wrong as the kid that like my parents like I'm not good enough for them to get their lives together. And I think I never internalized that feeling where it's like my fault. I was very much like, this is y'all fault. You guys suck. Like, you're terrible. You're weak. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
I was like, maybe that's where like, I've always been so headstrong about the situation of like myself. I was like, nope, not my fault.
Right.
Not my problem.
You didn't internalize things or take ownership of what didn't belong to you, which also makes me think of the fact of, I hear what you're saying because that is how I felt. Is I tried to parent you through my brokenness without my brokenness bleeding on you, but it still bled on you and affected you. And that's a lot of times is something that I focus on and I think about today is it's our job as parents and our responsibility to heal ourselves so that our children don't have to heal from us.
Yeah.
Our brokenness and our issues and our trauma or the things we've experienced or what we've been through should not touch our children. And that's not something that I did.
And I think it probably hurt me more once you guys changed your lives. Like once you found God and like 180'd our whole life. I think that's what hurt me more or like upset me more. And I had bigger emotions and feelings about everything versus living through it, if that makes sense. Because to go from how we were living, moving around, you and Dad fighting, drugs, like all of that, not knowing like if you went out one night, how my life was going to look the next morning. Like, why are we moving? Why are we going here? Whose house are we staying at? Because you and Dad got
nothing
in a fight.
was communicated to you.
Yeah.
Everything was, I refer to as like the rug just getting swept out from under your feet. To give a great example of something that you had to experience through me is I remember the time that I left the house and I had on just some like shorts, some flip-flops, a hoodie, and a little beanie type hat. And I said, hey, I'm just going to run up here and go to the tanning place real quick. Mm-hmm. And the tanning place was closed. I used to bar back or waitress at a bar in Mustang. And I was like, I don't feel like going home right now. I'm just going to run up here and say hi to some people, some friends, hang out for a second. And before I know it, I died in the bar parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
And you had been calling my phone and wondering where I was. I wasn't answering. I left the house when the sun was still up, and it was 1:30 in the morning because after I had went up to get more details filled in of the story because I didn't remember too much. I remember going out onto the floor, dancing with some friends, looking over at my stuff, having it sit on the counter, and I don't remember nothing else from that, which was still very weird for me because I know I'd had 1 beer and 2 sips of a Long Island iced tea. It was rumored or said that there was someone up there that was putting things in a drink, but either way, I can't confirm that, but that doesn't matter to how it impacted my daughter. And someone from outside the parking lot came inside, told the bartender lady, and said, hey, I think that girl that works here is laying outside in the parking lot. And when you left the door of the bar, my car was parked right here, but I was on the opposite side, on the passenger side on the floor. And they had to like give me CPR and stuff. They called the ambulance. And then that's how you figured out. Somebody
Well,
answered my
The
phone.
paramedic answered you because I was calling you a bunch. I remember that. Dad was sleeping, so I think maybe he worked nights or whatever.
Yeah.
And Dad was sleeping, and I called, and a paramedic answered the phone. And like either the call kept dropping. I don't know. He thought I was hanging up on him. Definitely wasn't. Like I kept calling you back. Like, where's my mom? And he had to tell me over the phone, like, we found your mom in the bar parking lot, and she's currently in the way to the hospital. And I remember, I can't even tell you how old I was, obviously, but hearing that, and he was the one that had to break that news to me, and of course I like ran upstairs to tell Dad I'm crying, and it's like, and so we visit you at the hospital, and this was like the craziest part about my childhood with you and Dad. The next day, we're back. Everything's fine. Nothing's wrong. That was a normal occurrence. Like,
Yeah.
it was never addressed or talked about of how crazy these things were.
Right, this is not
Like,
normal.
How does I'm visiting my mom in the hospital and she's having her stomach pumped, and then the next day we're fine. Like, we're not talking, and it's so comical now because you're such a let's talk about it mom.
Yeah. To death.
Yes, you're very much
We're not
let's
going
talk
to leave
about
any
it.
issue or emotion unaddressed or off the table.
Yeah.
And then that is kind of the story of life. Like, things would happen. 1 minute something would come out of my mouth that would sound normal, safe, or okay, but it always led to something that was not safe, was not okay, was not normal, and you got to the point where you believed absolutely nothing that I would ever say.
Yeah, and maybe that's where it goes back to where I first started talking about how, like, it hurt more with you, because with Dad, he was, and, like, you were the main parent, in the sense of, like, you were the mom, you wrangled things, like, how moms are, that was you, but you had to juggle, like, addiction with trying to be a mom, and kids can see through that real quickly, so it's, like, that's why it hurt more with you, and that's where I became very much, like, where are you going? What are you doing? What's going on? Why, like, very quick to answer questions, like ask all these questions because I just didn't trust what was happening.
Which also forced you to have to grow up very quickly. And we'll move on from this story in a minute, but just like you said, where we woke up the next day and it was like, whatever. The part that I do remember is I woke up in my bed, I called for your dad, he came upstairs like mad with an attitude and irritated at me. I had those leads that they put on you for checking your heart and stuff, and I literally asked him, what happened? And he said, you don't remember? I'm like, not at all. I have absolutely no memory of this. So we did. He was annoyed. He pushed it down, and then we just got up and faced the day like nothing.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And like trying to hide those things from your children too.
Right.
Like you and Dad would have these parties. I remember once distinctly when we lived in Mustang, like all these people were over at the house and like in the backyard drinking, of course, running their mouths, saying all these inappropriate things. And I'm there in the corner, quiet as can be, listening, looking, and learning. Like, that's what I was good at. And Dad came in the house and, like, I went, started watching TV, like, came in the house and yelled at me and, like, told me to go to my room. And I just didn't understand. I was like, why am I leaving? Like, what is happening? This is not new.
Right.
Like, what are we trying to hide? And that was, like, you can't. Like, I'm here. I see this. This happens all the time. Why are we trying to not let me see this?
Because we could drink in front of you, but we couldn't smoke pot in front of you or do any other extracurricular activities because that's just not appropriate.
Not appropriate.
Oh, goodness. So when we're looking back about how do you feel about that environment shaped you while you were growing up? Do you think it affected your trust, your emotions, friendships, schools, or any other big areas of your life when you just look back at those things and think how they had shaped you before we got sober?
Like during where you guys were using drugs and like those friends? No, not really. Like I didn't think about it. I think because you guys hung out with those people, they had kids. So like I'm here with them. Like all us kids are talking about our parents in this room. Like, oh, our parents are crazy. They're smoking pot. Like blah blah blah. But once you guys got sober, it's fun. I seemed to find the friends that had the parents my parents used to be. Like those were the friends that I found. Like their parents didn't go to church, were drug addicts, or they drank, or had the same kind of upbringings, but their parents still didn't know God. And I think that plays such a big factor in sobriety is you truly want to change your life and you want to be better and you want to be sober for your children. That's so great. Like do it. But I think when you invite God into your family, into your life, that change is so much bigger. Yeah. Like that really impacts your family and how your kids will view you.
Right.
And you're surrounding yourself with the same people, but they're not gonna. Because I remember like going to your guys' AA meetings or NA or whatever, and it's like they are sober. They're sober people here, but they're still cussing like crazy and running their mouth, and they think the stories are funny, and it's just like when you are in church and those people that you become friends with, like they trust God, they love God, so like that is in them, and you can tell with how they are that they're different. And I think having God in that way just makes a huge difference in your walk with sobriety, and then having God.
Yeah.
I think those play such a big impact. But I didn't have friends that parents were godly. So you could just tell, like, they're rough around the edges a little bit. Like, they're parents that love their kids, and they're sober, maybe. What do kids know most of the time, especially? But they were not. And I think I judged those parents more as a kid. Like, yeah, your parents are sober, great, but your parents are not like my parents. Like, my parents don't cuss. My parents love God. I have to, like,
I love how you say don't cuss, because I just professed in my women's group on Wednesday how I struggle with cussing still, and it's hard to stop because I love it.
I think now that your kids are older and, like, it's more okay, you know, like, especially when you guys first got sober, it was such, like, we're going at this, and we're going at this hard, so it was like, we're changing everything. Like, everything's going to be different. And now once you become more comfortable and, like, you're not trying to prove something, it's like you're not walking on eggshells. And it's like, I can say the F word once, and it's, like, not going to kill me. Or it's not going to make God not love me, because you understand the foundation of that.
Just once. Was there a specific moment or season when you first noticed that Dad and I were changing when we got sober and started following Jesus? Or what do you feel like from your perspective, your eyes, what did that look like?
I hope I'm not making this up in my head, but I've always felt like we went to California one summer.
Mm-hmm.
We went to California, me and Autumn. We were there, and we came home, and you and Dad were, like, completely different people. And I can't tell you when that happened, or, like, that's my vividest memory I have of, like, my parents are different people. We just went to California, and we came home, and we lived here in Yukon. It was like, who are these people? What have they done with my parents? Like, we're going to church. And I don't know if you guys were, like, walking with God or trying to find God, or we were going to church before we went to California. I don't remember, but that's, like, the most vivid memory I have.
Yeah.
Of, like, coming home, there's these rules, and you and Dad are different, and you're acting different and talking different and trying to parent me, and, like, my house, my rules, and, like, these actually mean something now. And it was just like, this is not good. This is not fun.
Yeah.
I remember we went back another time, maybe, and it was like after we had been stable and, like, you and Dad are different. We go to church. We're Christians. We love God. We honor God in our lives. And I wanted to wear, like, a skirt, and you told me I had to wear leggings with it. Or, like, I had this little mini jean skirt you bought me, and you told me I had to wear these ugly tights with it. They were, like, gray, and the skirt it did not match. And I would, like, sneak, because it was like, my life is so different. My parents are so strict. They do care about these things, which now as a grown woman with my own children, heck yeah, support that. I 100% get it. But as a teenager, it was like, what is happening? And so I remember Nana took a photo of me, and I, like, hid behind Autumn, so if you saw the photo, you wouldn't be able to tell. But so funny, you clocked it right away, too. You clocked it right away when you saw the photo, and, like, you talked to me on the phone. I was like, no, Mom, I was wearing those. Or Brittany pierced my ears, and, like, we didn't ask you about it. And Brittany was like, your mom's gonna be so mad, like, all this stuff, because she knew how you guys were different. Like, she knew her sister was Jesus, her sister was different. And it was like, before, you probably wouldn't have cared as much. But, like, this was, I'm your mother. How dare you not respect me? How dare you do something that you don't ask me about? And it was like, that wouldn't have mattered that much if you guys were still in active addiction. You'd be like, all right, is it cute? Clean it. Like,
right.
But then you were like,
standards.
And I think I was more scared too, because when you found out, you were like, you better take that out. And I could have not, but as soon as you told me that, I was like, I need to take this out. Like, I need to respect my mother, because she means business.
Yeah.
But before, it wouldn't have mattered.
Right. Because I was too busy with myself or worrying about myself. And there was just trying to implement a different standard of values and morals and the way we moved and behaved, which had to be quite a shock to the system. You know, if anybody were to ask me what was an impactful moment in us changing our lives in regards to our children, and I've shared this a million times in my testimony, is you were a huge pivotal point for me. I want to say we were somewhere around maybe 6 months clean and sober. A lot of lip service. I was just constantly trying to convince you and your sister how different it was going to be, telling you. And so again, you were 12 at this time, and you stood in the kitchen, and you looked at me and said, I don't believe nothing that you say. And you said straight to me, you're an effing liar.
Yeah.
And I didn't get mad. It stopped me in my tracks. And I just thought, she's right. Why should she believe me? We could give example after example where I would say something and it would turn out to be the absolute opposite every single time. And so I just remember that day thinking, okay, I hear you. I understand what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from. And I have broken your trust so much. Actions speak louder than words. I'm going to quit trying to convince my daughter. I'm just going to show my daughter that it's going to be different. And being a child or not being a child, you were owed that respect. You were owed that I had to put in the work to rebuild everything that I had broken in my child's faith or trust in me. And one of the ones too that I tell people for an example was, if I told you I was going somewhere and I said I'll be home at 3 p.m., if it was 3:01, you better make sure Breana was just calling my phone, blowing it up. And again, I didn't get mad. I didn't get annoyed. I didn't pull I'm the adult or the respect card. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just thought, I'm just going to answer the phone and reassure her to where I am, what's going on. Or I would even be like, baby, I know I said I'd be home at 3 o'clock. I'm running late. I'll be home at 3:15. I'll be home at 3:30. I had to rebuild that stuff. And I've told people it might be an exaggeration. I don't feel like it is. But I think it took about a year before your nervous system and yourself would like settle down and settle into where you weren't hypervigilant. You weren't needing to be overinformed, overinsured, check in, like all of this stuff. And I think it probably took about a year before that settled. Do you have any
I don't
memories
remember. I don't remember that. I believe you. Like, I'm sure that's true. I don't remember that part. But I do remember, like, once you guys got it and I felt safer in my home, then I was like, I'm going to run the streets now. I'm living my life. Like, I'm going to do my thing. And that's the crazy part. And then I think a lot of parents face that, where you've changed your life. You want these things. You know what your kids grow up with this. But then for some reason, those children decide they want to go and
they become everything that they hate.
Yeah.
That they hated. Yeah. So good lead in. Let's talk about that for a minute. After your parents got, sober and changed their life, how was that for you? Did you automatically just flow into the change and the safety of living for Christ and being obedient and making good choices?
I definitely think I did in the beginning of like wanting this and believing that once it settled and I felt like, okay, this is my new life. But then we go back to the point where it's like you have these friends that their parents aren't the same way. Like, their parents don't have Christ and God, so it's like they're not as hyper vigilant in their children, or they're still personally themselves struggling with addiction. So it's like you have these friends. And I remember the first time I ever got offered to smoke weed, and it was like, I didn't want to. I was like, no, I'm okay. But of course my friend did. And then I was just like kind of sitting there, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And then a few more times it was like, okay, let me do it. Let me try. And then, I never did anything crazy. Like, weed was the craziest thing that I did.
Weed and drinking, correct?
Like a few times, but it wasn't anything that ever was like,
you weren't doing meth in the school bathroom like your mom,
Definitely
or dropping
not.
LSD on your walk to school like your mom, or taking mushrooms in your friend's backyard.
No, and that's so crazy to think about, because even like getting weed, I was like, I only knew this about it because my friend had it. I'm like, other stuff, how the heck do you get that? I was 14, 15,
the
16.
people you hang out with.
I know, and that's so crazy to me. And it was making these choices, and like, still, it was, not me living a double life. I was still a teenager, so like I was still very much with you and Dad, but it was like, we are going to church on Sunday. You guys are actively leading recovery groups, and I'm seeing all these broken families and these grown adults who have children and they can't get it together, and like, I'm actively seeing all this, but I'm like, I'm going to smoke weed. I'm going to do this with my friends. Like, I'm going to act like a hooligan. And I think it was like truly like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It was like, I wasn't connected with these friends in church. It was just like, yeah, my family goes to church, but like, let's go hang out at your house. Like, I didn't want that. And I think that was the biggest thing, was like, I didn't want to be home with these friends at my house, because you guys clearly could see through that. You knew this. You could tell they weren't good. Like, you didn't like this. But I think that was something where you guys were still like learning that balance of like not being too controlling with your children and kind
Right.
of letting them be, but still keeping it. And Mom, I gotta tell you, anything that you suspected was so true. Like
Girl.
everything that you ever suspected or had
Can I
suspicions
whoop
about,
you now?
it was like
Can you still get a
I
spanking?
was lying straight to your face, but in my head, I'm like, man, this woman, she knows. I mean, obviously, there are some things where it's like, no, that wasn't true, but like in the big things of like, are you high? Who's this boy? Like you just kind of knew these things, and it was like, that's crazy. I think during like high school and having those friends and like this whole new way of life, and just me doing these drugs and like making these choices, I think the thing that truly stopped me, and it, of course God and having that, but I think the disappointment I knew you and Dad felt in me, that hurt more. Like that was just not something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to have to do that. Plus, my sister, being the angel that she was, she never had any of these problems or these struggles or like
crazy. You're my
getting in
night
trouble.
and day babies.
Yeah, so of course, anything you and I did, like you and Dad were suspicious of, like rightfully so, but it just made my life harder. And I was like, I don't want to have to like lie about this and like coach my friends that have to come over to my house, or go, boy, like I have to coach him. They're like, these are my parents. They're a little crazy. Jesus freaks. Like, don't act like this. And I was like, that just became so exhausting to me because I didn't truly want to be like that. Like, I didn't want to have to coach or like think about or lie. And then just knowing the disappointment you and Dad felt in me, I'm like, you had this childhood. You've seen all these things. Like, I know you're just smoking pot right now and smoking cigarettes, but like, you've lived through all this and you hated us for it. So how can you do these things? And I think like I think 16 maybe. Like I was self-aware enough to know that like, yeah, this is not what I want. Like I do want my parents to trust me, to not get in trouble, to like if I say this, they believe me. Like there's no questioning or like wondering what I'm doing, if it's telling the truth. Like I didn't want any of that anymore. And I think that was the biggest thing of like not wanting to disappoint my parents anymore.
So, as a wife and a mom of two beautiful babies, how do you see the choices Dad and I made back then affecting your life now, in your marriage, or as you parent, or how you show up for your own kids?
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's any part of your childhood that you still have to battle or overcome, or what part of like Christ plays a big example in your life today?
I don't think with like my childhood I have to like personally overcome anything. I do think now as a mom I'm less sympathetic towards addiction, and like
Sure.
I've always kind of been that way. It's like when we've talked and you know how like I think it's so selfish now.
Right.
Like as a mom, it's very much like
I'm gonna tell you, as I was doing it, I even knew that. Like for real. I mean, this was a side part of like my story is I absolutely empathize with people, that I understand what it's like to be addicted to something that you hate and to become something you can't stand, but don't know how to stop doing it.
And I can understand that. Like I truly can understand that, but my sympathy level for it is so different, especially now as a mom, and just like knowing how deeply I love my children. And I also think I'm not opened myself up to that. Like I have an amazing husband who's never struggled with addiction. He's never even smoked pot in his life. Like he's an amazing man. His family didn't struggle that way. So it's like he is on the same wavelength of how we parent together.
Right.
And we have our parenting styles, but for completely different reasons. And it was like, because he had that safe, happy home. And I was like, I didn't. But we were wanting to parent the same way, which is very interesting to me, I think, for that. But
I think maybe that can also do is Dad would use who he used to be as this should not be your standard. What he loved to tell you and your sister is you keep the bar real low.
mm-hmm.
They don't have to try very hard to meet that standard. But if you raise the bar very high, then the ones that care are going to put in the work, and they fizzle out as the way, because if your standard, that bar is way up here, you're already setting a good way of eliminating a lot of hurts or struggles or things to deal with people that aren't even trying to be on the standard of which you require, you deserve, and that you need.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I know I had said back in my childhood, like it hurt more with you, but then once you guys became Christians and like sober, I think my relationship with Dad drastically changed because he became a man that like a daughter looks up to, a daughter looks for, and a husband. Like he became that. And I remember I was at church when I was a teenager after I had went through my rebellious phase, and I was serving at church, and we were in this switch group, and I was talking to the youth pastor and like explaining to him, like, I can't remember every detail, but I know I was just going in about Dad, of how like I trust him, I look up to him, like if I'm gonna find a man, it's gonna be like my father, and I have these standards, and I'm not gonna lower them for any man. Like, that's a headache. Like, it's not hard. The standards I have, they're not crazy. It's just, and I remember he like was looking at me, listening, and then he walked away, and I like very awkwardly he walked away, and I was like, okay, that was so strange, but good talk. But my friend, she was there, and she's like, I would look for a man like her dad, and I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But and then I came home later, and Dad told me that he called him and said, the way your daughter talks about you, like I have 3 daughters of my own. I pray they talk about me that way, that your daughter does. And so with finding a husband that was like, these are the standards, and I did live, like, I was a standard, like, what's the wording? I held myself with high standards, so, like, it wasn't hard to find a man that was equal in that way. It's like, if you want a man with high standards, but you don't have those for yourself, you're not going to find someone the same way.
What we think we deserve, and when we hold ourselves with high value, we don't accept less than what we know we deserve.
Yeah, and then that was what I found my husband, and then so our values equaled out. Like we didn't meet. We met each other in high school through church, but then we didn't get together until after we graduated high school.
Right.
But it was just like we met through church. Like, this is the example, and telling him about like my childhood and things like that, and it's like he's
Mrs. Jones.
Well, I've made some comparisons about like drinking, because that is still like my biggest thing I think about is alcohol. Because for some people, they can just have a drink and it's no big deal, and like it doesn't hurt them. But me, I don't know that. I know alcohol it's a terrible evening. Your dad's in jail. Your mom's got a black eye. Like that's what alcohol did. And even the people that you guys knew, because I was surrounded by recovering addicts my whole childhood, that also played the same thing. Like if I'm telling him a story about someone drinking, because I'm letting you know like crazy stuff went down because they were drinking. And so I would make comparisons, and he like didn't understand it, or he didn't agree if I would say someone's an alcoholic, because he's like, just because they drink every night. I'm like, but this is what plays out, and this is what happens because they drink every night. That alcohol is ruining their family. They are an alcoholic. They can't stop it, and these things keep happening. But he never experienced that growing up. So it was like, that's a big difference. But even saying that, like, we are the same way. Like my husband doesn't drink. He's never smoked pot in his life. Like, he makes it easy to not, he makes it easy to stay on the path. Like, he is that person.
He sets a great example for your family, and a great, standard, and a great path. Yeah. And it makes it easy for you to be able to follow.
Yeah. And I'm so lucky to have found that. Like, I mean, both me and Autumn, like, we have these great husbands. And it's like, and that's just because of the consistency of our childhood, where it's like, our parents did change. Like, they found, and God is all that. Like, God did that for our family and made it possible for me and Autumn to turn out to be great daughters, great wives, like great moms, and like trust God and love God in our lives. Like, that's all because of him and that change that happened in our childhood.
Right. That is, I have had people ask me, like, God, Rae Anne, how did your children turn out so good? It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I know that one day I just told God, please heal my daughters. I'm giving them back to you. Please fix everything that I've ever broken. You trust me to be their mom, and I did everything I possibly could to try to destroy them. If you will heal and fix my children, then there's nothing else in this life that I deserve. Like, that's all that I've wanted. But I do think the part that me or your father does play, or that, we did do in all of this, was actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Once we said we were this, we are doing this, this is how we live, this is what it is, this is the standard of our living, this is the way that we're living, there was no wishy-washy with that. A lot of times, unfortunately, you'll hear from parents, do as I say, not as I do. Or I am the adult, you are the child. That doesn't matter. Yeah. Your children are watching you more than they're listening to anything that you say. If you don't want it for your children, don't do it for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that is the hugest part. If I were to give anybody any type of lasting advice, is make a decision that's best for yourself and your life, but it's because you want it for your children.
Yeah.
They're going to model you and mimic you more than they're ever going to listen to you or obey anything that you have
And we
to
were
say.
surrounded by, because you guys were so active in church and the recovery ministry that you guys did. Like, we were surrounded by other people who did the same thing. And as I've gotten older, like, you hear unfortunate stories of, like, it didn't work out for them. Like, they relapsed and it has broken their families and broken their homes. And, like, I was old enough to understand that's, like, this is not, like, what I want. Like, I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to, like, build back the trust with my children. I don't want to have to go through this.
Right.
Like, I didn't want that. And then you also come to realize, like, not everything is as it seems with a lot of adults, even in church. And that's something that you, like, as a teenager, I even knew, because I would go to church and serve, and, like, my friends' parents would even serve in the ministry at the church for the youth. But then, like, they would tell me stories about their parents, and I'm like, your mom does not love God. But I'm, like, 17, like, thinking I know everything. But it was, like, I still recognized and saw that. But it never, like, wavered in what I thought about God. It was just, like, my parents are what they say. Because that was something that was, I realized, like, that was big to me. Is, like, they're not living this way outside. They're in church, and they paint this image, and they want this. But it's, like, at home, they're kicking their 16-year-old daughter out of the house, or they're drinking, or they're fighting with their children, and it's just like, that's not what God called for us. And it was
Right.
like, my parents truly changed who they were in our family, like, and out of everybody growing up that we knew, it's like, y'all are still, like, still the same, like, haven't wavered.
Yeah.
And even now, when I'm grown and old, it's like, there are people that we didn't think, like, they would stay this route, and they've completely 180'd their lives, and they're here. And then there's others, like, they were someone
they're
you
not.
looked up to, and now they're not anymore. And it's like, that's where the hard part of recovery is. And, like, you just have to, and that's why I think God plays the biggest factor, is, like, don't lose that. Like, stay in church, do this for your family, because it's so important.
So if you were to look back again on everything we've talked about, all the stuff that we've kind of went through and uncovered, and we talked about you being a wife and a mother and a daughter and then a friend and just who you are in Christ today, do you think there are any specific lessons or gifts you feel you have received from growing up the way that you did, or things that you're actually grateful for because of the walk that we've been through?
I think it's just a mom is what, like, going through that, I think has helped me in our relationship. I think to grow up the way we did, and then to change and how close we are, I think that's, like, the biggest lesson that I've taken, is, like, I want my kids to be able to trust me and talk to me about these things. And I kind of know, not, like, kids are kids, they'll do these things, like, and I'm never, like, my love will never waver for them the way you are. And, like, I want them to be able to talk to me and communicate with me. I think sometimes with parents who, like, become to love God and go to church, and, like, they do have these standards and boundaries in their home that they set, but if, God forbid, your children waver from that, the reaction that those parents have,
Right.
It
It shouldn't
not-
be boundaries or values or morals that put a barrier between you and your child. It should open your child to want to
Yeah.
come to you. Is that what you're saying?
and I think with my childhood, I am more willing to, and having you and Dad as parents, I think I am more willing for my own children to, like, allow the mistakes. We're all human. Like, these things do happen. I have sympathy in the sense of, like, for my own kids, like, for something like that. Now, as a mom, for myself, I don't have sympathy because it involves my children for me to make those choices. But for my own children, absolutely. Because just the undying love that I have for them, and knowing that these things can happen, and how, I mean, in my rebellious teenage years, I made some stupid choices, but you guys never wavered. You still loved me, and you also were someone that I could talk to. Even though, I mean, I didn't get off scot-free. I got punishments, of course.
Right.
Like, and that was most of the time why I lied. And I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. But with my kids, I know that that's going to set, just because we love God and we do have these standards in our home, like, you guys are still human, and it's okay. And I want you to be able to speak to me as your mother. I want you to be able to feel like you're comfortable to be able to have these conversations and not be scared of how, as a mom, I'm going to react to it, for just consequences aside, like, knowing that you can talk to me and be comfortable, and I'll love you through that.
Yeah. It was always an open door policy. It
Yeah.
didn't matter what the situation was, what was going on. I'm your mom. I'm your person. I'm your safe place. We can and will talk about everything, but that does not mean there won't be consequences for some of your choices or your behavior.
Yeah, well, and even now, I'm 28 years old, and I'm way comfortable with my mom.
Yeah, but I do love that. That is today is that I think what is beautiful is you know, we went from a mom-daughter relationship to now we are mother and daughter, but we have such a friendship.
Yeah.
I may feel that with your sister too. I get to call you guys my best friends.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of when your children are adults. When you were younger, it's not my job to be your friend.
Yeah.
Now I get to be your friend. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's what's great and beautiful. I love that.
And I just love that, like, my children will never have to, like, I mean, when they're old enough, of course, they're going to hear stories about how you and Dad used to be. I'm going to share even my own childhood.
No.
But, like, they'll never.
You keep that crap to yourself.
It's fun to know those things, though.
Sure.
Like, now, so, what's the word? So, like, separate from what you and Dad used to be, to hear these things about you guys, I'm like, that's crazy. Like, how could you do these things? Like, and my childhood wasn't even, like, or my actions as a child was not wild. Like, I wasn't that crazy. I didn't do anything, like, the way you and Dad did. Never.
No.
Like, never.
And we're not here to talk about me today.
And, like, hearing those stories, like, now as I'm grown, I'm like, that's crazy. So funny. Not fun. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's so great. You and your sister love it. Sometimes you'll be sitting there having a flippant conversation about your mother, cracking up and joking, and I'm like, I'm sitting right here. This is not fun.
And I think that's the beauty of it.
Dig in to know more information.
But I think that's the beauty of it. I think what we have and what the fact that we're able to talk about these things, and you and Dad don't have like the don't talk about me like that, don't talk about this, or like the embarrassment of it. Dad a little bit, but only because, like, I don't know, that's just how Dad's personality is. He's like, I don't want, I mean, for the longest time, I had to ask Nana how Dad ended up in juvie because he refused to tell me.
Right.
And I'm like, I have to know this information. And I think that stems from my childhood. I'm like, I need to know all the details. I need to know everything.
Right. I do think there's a little bit of lingering from that of unknown uncertainty gives you anxiety and makes you a little uncomfortable and uneasy.
I'll give you that. I claim to not have any trauma from my childhood. I'll give you that because I also don't like closed doors, and that's still very prone.
I still have that from my childhood.
My husband will be taking naps and he shuts our bedroom door, and I'm like, what's he doing there? Why is the door shut? And I'm like, he's sleeping.
I don't know that I knew that about you.
He's sleeping, but I still very much am like, I'm pinging in on why is this door shut?
Right. What are you doing back there where I can't come in?
And I think, I mean, that definitely stems from my childhood of having to hear guys' door constantly close and knocking to be like, Mom, are you going to come out and feed us dinner? Like, what are we doing in here?
Yeah.
Like, I think that stems from my childhood. But the biggest thing is how, as a parent, like, how I'm going to parent my children and from my childhood and our relationships.
So, if you could speak directly to a mom or dad who is still in active addiction right now, or to a child who's living in that same chaos you once did, what is something you'd like to say to them? Maybe if you can address both of them, that would be great.
But it's what I didn't talk about. I should have like brought it in at some point about where what I wanted to do as a child, like I wanted to be a police officer.
Yeah,
and the reason behind that was because at the time when I didn't feel safe as a child, that was who made me feel safe.
Right.
Is because of the police. And like that was the route I wanted to take, and to like be that first person to interact and like be that safety, and not really for adults. And that's where I don't seem sympathetic, but it's like, it's for the kids. Like, I wouldn't have as much sympathy for adults. My heart would break for these children. I want them to be that soundboard.
Right.
They're like, you can talk to me, let's communicate, like, let's keep you safe, the way I felt like the police did during my childhood.
Yeah.
And I even went to, when I was in school to become a police officer for one of my college courses, we went to this outreach, I think it was, like this community center that they had. And the officer that ran the program made us get up and speak. And I was like, okay, that's one time they said, if you're going to be a police officer, you can't be scared of public speaking. And I was like, what in the world do you mean? Like, I absolutely can. But I was like, well, I got to do it. So act strong. And I was in this room full of these teenagers. And I was only 19 at the time. And I told them, I was like, I think I started with my story of like, letting them know I was 19. And they couldn't believe it. These 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And I told them, I was like, the reason I want to be a police officer as kids growing up with my childhood, that was the only people that made me feel safe, is when I knew that my parents that struggled with addiction, that were addicts, that were not good parents, were not good people, those police that were going to step in and make sure that I was taken care of, that I was safe. They were going to do that for me. And I remember talking to this room of these kids, and I was like, well, maybe this is something that interests me, of like just communicating with children, of like, I know your parents suck, and I know your life is hard, but it doesn't have to be this way. Like, you don't have to be like your parents.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to. And even as, like, myself going through my little stint of going and doing drugs and being a rambunctious teenager, it's like, that's not my life. Like, that's a totally separate person from my little teenage rebellion. Like, I don't consider it this huge moment in my life. The moment of my life was my family trusting God and giving God our lives. That was the moment. And so that was something that I always think about, is like, that is the turning point for me, where it's like, I know being a parent, wanting to be a mom, like, I don't want those things for my kids, and they'll never have to know that or wonder about that.
Right. You don't have to let your trauma write your story.
Yeah.
You don't have to let your trauma take the lead and lead you down a terrible path that you have to heal from. I think that even plays a part in the fact that, in mine and Dad's story, we did a lot of things to try to give back or to redeem from who we were. And one of those is we had fostered for a while. And there was such a sense of, just to be honest, shock, but then also a sense of pride for you and your sister. We lived in a 1,000 square foot home that was 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. So really you stood in one place and it was dunk, 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 dunk. Like there was nothing to this home. And you and your sister moved into a bedroom together that had 2 twin beds. That literally was just a path this way and a path that way, so that we could use one of those, the other bedroom, for a foster bedroom. And not once did you and your sister ever complain.
Yeah.
And you embraced any child that came into our home as if they were your little sister or little brother, or that baby just belonged there. You guys never, I just remember, like, you never being selfish, you never grumbling, you never complaining about how this took all of our time, our energy, our effort, like money, like resources, because Dad and I didn't even have a lot of money at the time. I mean, we were barely living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And we, taking in all these kids, and you guys just openly did that with open arms and, just with such a great heart. And now listening to what you just said, sharing about, being the police officer and for the children, it's God had already started working in your guys' hearts and your lives to know, hey, I've been through this and I want to be able to be here for someone else that has been through this, or to love these kids in a way that they weren't getting loved the way that they needed. Because I think that really is the purpose of our life here on earth, and everything that we go through is, let me be something for someone else that I have needed and that I've overcome with, because that's what the body of Christ does for each other.
Yeah.
How has Jesus shown up in your story through all this? Has your faith been shaped differently because of the road that we have walked on as a family?
I think as a teenager, for sure, like, strong rooted. Now as an adult, it's like I am more comfortable, if that makes sense. And I think there are certain moments where it's like, I'm not questioning God. I don't ever forget God, but it's like I become too comfortable, or it's not as something that I'm like actively seeking and passionate about, if that makes sense. Especially between me and Autumn, like, we're very different sisters and how we are. Like, I still am the black sheep of the family, in the sense of, like, she's just so light in Jesus, and like it radiates off her. I don't have that persona about me until we talk, and then absolutely we'll talk about it. But it's not like my first thing about me, if that makes sense. I don't like the way that sounds.
No. I think really maybe what you're trying to say, your coming is you've been just living in your parents' faith for a long time, and now maybe starting to live your life or look in your life that's no longer as impactful or as powerful as it should be, that it's something you need to start embracing or walking towards in your own life, to developing your own relationship, your own walk, and your own faith with Christ.
Yeah, well, especially for my children, because I know that, like, my childhood was so full of that my kids will have that. Like, that shapes me, and that is like who I'm relying on to help me raise my children. It's like to give them that the same way I had it. When we had our miscarriage, I was like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to feel these feelings. Like, never questioned God. I think my husband maybe did more, in the sense of like having that taken away from us and how hard that was. Like, why did we have to go through that, maybe? But I didn't ever question that or doubt God. I was just I did not want to feel the emotions that I knew I was going to have to feel. And maybe that's my childhood is the biggest one, is like my lack of wanting to feel emotions about things. That's what God is for, those feelings, those emotions. And it's okay to feel them. And I'm like very anti. I don't want to feel these feelings. I don't want to feel these emotions. But yeah, it's not fun. But that's what he's there for.
Yeah. I don't think there's absolutely no way to have a relationship with Jesus and not have to face your emotions and yourself.
Yeah.
And so I unfortunately think that's why maybe a lot of people shy away from it. But it's the one place where you can
Have those
afterwards.
emotions. Yeah.
I think you probably felt more peace and rest and safety.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was fighting against this, but this is exactly what I did.
I mean, the testimony of our lives is the change that happened for you guys, and it's because of God, and then your children, obviously. But then now it's me and Autumn, our children, of like that carrying that on to like our generation, and not being that like our kids will never know that brokenness the way me and my sister have. Like our kids will never know that, and like that's so beautiful, and that's because of God.
It's breaking generational curses.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here and being brave enough to share all this and even talking about the emotional part and all the different things. Your story is helping so many people already. To everyone listening, if this episode hit you in the heart, screenshot it, share it with someone who needs hope, and leave us a review. I love you. Thank you so much for being here and letting me be your mom through every chapter of your life.
I love you too.
We're honored to walk with you toward Christ-centered freedom and growth. This ministry is centered around overcoming life-controlling issues through spiritual transformation. Let us explore what we're all about. We help people find freedom in Christ across every area of life by blending biblical principles, the 12 steps, and spiritual application. We want to help people overcome life-controlling issues and growing in a deeper relationship with Jesus. All podcasts are recorded and sponsored by Spray Can Creative. We want to thank them for their support and providing us with this amazing space. Remember, you're never alone. Freedom and healing are just 12 steps away. And remember, always face the sunlight.